It is officially game week, and the Rams have made another bold move, a shuffle along the offensive line. We've got injury updates, and the Rams hire a new coach. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor, join the party. Getting so close to 14,000 subscribers, so do us a huge favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know. Are you okay with the offensive line shuffle? Do you want to see Jonah Jackson at center? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI, Bleacher Report, 24/7 Sports, Dodgers Nation, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, the Rams hire a former college coach, a new coach in the building that could make an impact. And we're talking the offensive line and the big shuffle there. Are we okay with it? What are our thoughts on that? The Rams also named their captain. We're going to talk about that as well. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepick.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Travis. So we were talking a little college football before the show. One thing I want to point out is, you know who misses some of our players right now? That's Florida State. They're missing Braden Pitts. They're missing Jared Verse. Last year, the Seminoles went 12-0 with those two. Now they're 0-2. Travis, imagine being 0-2 in college football, and it's Labor Day.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Maybe they give back those championship rings they made for themselves and just kind of, move on.
That's cool. That's a shot.
Pretend that never happened. Yeah, look, I don't. Does anybody root for Florida State that's not a Florida State fan? So I don't think there's a lot of tears anywhere outside of Tallahassee for what's going on there. That's for sure.
I don't root for anyone. I hate everyone, including my own team in college football. But but Sean McVay had a very interesting tweet. He told the media yesterday, it was very simple. Was asked about the upcoming Lions matchup, the season opening up. He says, S is getting real. And that's absolutely what it's getting. It is game week. The Rams are Tutu Atwell, Jalen Ramsey, Blake Bortles away from opening night against the Lions. And the first segment today, we're going to spend on the offensive line shuffle. Last week, Sean McVay told us that he was leaning towards starting Jonah Jackson at the center spot to start the season. He was asked about moving Steve Avila back to left guard and pushing Jonah Jackson at the center spot, and he said, I think so. He's done a great job. He's got that personality, and the beauty of it is you got really two guys that can play center or guard with Steve Avila or Jonah Jackson. Jonah hasn't been out there, so here we have really wanted to make sure that if it was that route we're going to go, that he was going to end up giving him all the reps, especially because of the noise in the atmosphere. He's done great. So that's a big move heading into your first game of the season.
It's a huge move. I mean, there's really no way to spin it other than wow. And okay. I mean, this is, we talked about this last week, D-Mac, the everydayers will remember this. They're borrowing against their bank of credit a lot all of a sudden, yes. Right? I believe that Sean McVay knows what he's doing. I believe he's one of the best, if not the best coach in the NFL. I believe that Les Snead has a really good idea of what he's doing. He's one of the best in the league at the general manager spot. But wow, I mean, this is a whole lot of stuff that is adding up that makes you kind of scratch your head. We had Kyron Williams as the punt returner. I still don't quite understand that. And now with about a week to go before the start of the regular season, you're shuffling your offensive line in a dramatic way, an offensive line that already is going to be compromised because of suspensions and injuries and some other things along the way. I guess there's two ways to look at it. They either found something they really liked in putting Avila back at guard and Jackson at center, or they saw something they really didn't like with those guys in the opposite spots, and they needed to address it right there. I guess we'll see what it is. Like you said, we're on the 1 yard line as far as starting the season, basically. So to change this at this point in the season makes your eyebrows go up for sure. And it means that something isn't the way that they want it for them to make this move at this point before the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you hit on the nail. There's other ways you can spin this. You can spin it as a positive and say, okay, he brings versatility. And that you signed Jonah Jackson. He was the big free agent off-season acquisition. They signed with a 3-year, $51 million deal, $25.5 million guaranteed. And really the way it's framed, it's basically could be looked at as a 2-year deal with $34 million and $17 million with the salary, the $17 million signing bonus. But the truth of the matter is they paid him to be a guard, an elite guard at that. And with Steve Avila, we were told that his best position was going to be at center.
Yeah.
And I think the way you can look at this is, yes, that Jonah Jackson only has 24 snaps at the center spot in the NFL, but Steve Avila has 0. And that Steve Avila, yes, he was great at the center spot at TCU, but to thrust him into a situation in Detroit, it might have been the better decision to go with someone who's familiar with that stadium, that it has a little more experience, that's versatile, and it's just about getting your best offensive line out there in week 1 and protecting Matthew Stafford. So, yeah, I mean, it's different. I mean, playing as a rookie, playing in college, I mean, from one of my other gigs, I interviewed Donovan McNabb once, and I asked him, hey, what is the big, when you talk about elite level college football, high level college football, and the leap to the NFL as a rookie, how would you describe the leap? And he told me, he's like, it's like going from racing go-karts at one of those little places that have like the little mini golf thing to going in the Indy 500. Okay. So that leap to me is extremely significant when you hear it described like that. So you have to factor in the experience that Jonah Jackson does have at least the NFL offensive line.
Sure. Yes. Agreed. But here, I've never gotten the sense that Steve Avila is anything but a pretty chill guy, a pretty cool customer, a pretty smart football player. I've never gotten the feel that he's overwhelmed by things. And if this is a hostile environment, it's going to be loud, let's make a change for just this one. Really? I mean, he's going to, playoffs are going to be loud. You know, tough divisional games are going to be loud, that there's going to be a lot of tough situations. So I don't know if it's as much that as it's much maybe something they're seeing that they just don't like. This is what's so hard to deal with the Rams, because we don't see them play their guys against other guys until the season starts. We're kind of left to guess. We're kind of left to try to see what we've seen against some dual workouts and things like that. So I'm not entirely sure whether I like it or dislike it until I see it in practice. And they're going to get their hands full against Detroit. Detroit is one of the best teams in the conference. They're a pick to go to the Super Bowl. They've got Aiden Hutchinson there to go cause all sorts of problems for your quarterback. And that O-line is going to get tested. It was already going to get tested, and now we're shuffling it just before the season. This is a big borrow in the trust bank, that's for sure.
There's no doubt about that. And I think really what it comes down to as well is the emergence of Bo Limmer during training camp. He played well enough to earn some first-team reps during training camp. And by doing that, you put Steve Avila back at a position that he played at the NFL level, at a high level for a rookie, so he was able to cross-train. So that definitely was helpful when you look at the ultimate decision they made to put Jonah Jackson at center. And Jonah Jackson, when he recovered from his injury, it didn't give them tons of time to experiment along that offensive line. So really, I think what it came down to at the end of the day was, hey, backs up against the wall. We have to get our best offensive lineman out there. Jonah Jackson was the big offseason investment. We think he's one of those guys. So you got him at center, and then you got Avila and Dotson at guard. Those are the guys that really pushed this offensive line and this running game to the next level last season. So you feel good about that. Rob Havenstein, he was a full participant at practice. He was getting more reps, and he's getting better. He's on the mend. It looks like he's going to be ready to start. And then Joe Noteboom, we're going to talk about him in our next segment as far as the opportunity he has. Could he take that starting job away from A.J. Jackson even when he returns? So we're going to get into that next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, right? Because it's America's #1 sportsbook. You knew all that. You knew that you can get all of your futures, all of your game lines, all of your player props. All of that's available at FanDuel for your favorite team. Well, we've got that, and we've got something a little different for you, because right now through September 22nd, so you've got 19 days, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You heard that right? You have a YouTube TV base plan. You'll be able to watch every regular season out-of-market game on Sunday afternoons. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can obviously cancel at any time. So not only can you have all the fun that you've always had with FanDuel, but they're hooking you up with a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So get on it. Enjoy all the games on Sunday. Enjoy all the fun that FanDuel has to offer you. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. We definitely thank you, appreciate you. We're getting close to 14,000 subscribers on YouTube. That was the goal before opening kickoff. Should have that done. So if you haven't yet, if you're listening to the pod, definitely check out the YouTube channel. If you watch on YouTube, definitely subscribe to the pod as well. But Travis, here in our second segment, we're going to stay on the offensive line topic. Yeah. We're going to talk about Joe Noteboom, because I think Joe Noteboom has a big opportunity in the Rams' first 2 games of the season. With Alaric Jackson suspended for the first 2 games, he won't be eligible to return until September 16th after the Rams face the Arizona Cardinals. So I think with Joe Noteboom, he's always had the versatility, which is good, and he has had flashes. He's had flashes. It's just about the consistency every single snap, every single game. And with Alaric Jackson, him being out, this gives these 5 guys an opportunity to build some chemistry and cohesion the first 2 games. So I think if he does perform well, based on what they're paying him, over $11 million versus A.J. Jackson under $5 million, I mean, he could take on that left tackle role if he has a stellar first 2 games. It's definitely within the realm of possibility.
Sure it is. Look, it's the classic NFL line, next man up. You do not want to give the guy that's your backup a chance to go play because you're suspended or this is why injuries are such a big deal. This is why guys sometimes push themselves to points that they probably shouldn't do it, because they're worried about losing their job. They're worried about losing their livelihood. And to your point, D-Mac, Joe Noteboom is not just some guy. Look, he's not an all-pro. He's not somebody that's going to, you're going to have a bidding war in free agency to get his services. But what he is a guy that's been in the NFL a long time. A guy that has held down that position reasonably well for extended periods of time on this team. The year they won the Super Bowl, the year Andrew Whitworth was their left tackle, he missed some time towards the end of the year. Who filled in? Well, Joe Noteboom, right? Joe Noteboom was the guy that went in there and held up pretty darn well through the point of for them to continue to go into the playoffs and, of course, win the Super Bowl. So he's not going to be a guy that's overwhelmed by a loud environment. He's not going to be a guy that's overwhelmed by an opportunity right here. You may have just cracked the door for a guy who was supposed to have this job in the first place, and now he's a chance to go and earn it back by you getting suspended and you getting an opportunity, in Joe Noteboom's case, to step in and grab that spot. I mean, is he perfect? No. Does he have a chance to get the job? Yeah, probably. That's the one position on that O-line that I think that they're curious about, willing to look at things. And if Noteboom goes out there and looks pretty good for 2 weeks, why would you change it?
And I think, too, you look at just the nature of AJ's absence, right? I mean, this is someone who violated NFL's personal conduct policy. And with that, you're not allowed to be in meetings. You're not allowed to participate in any activities. You can't be in the building. You're gone for the first couple weeks of the season. Yeah. And I think with Joe Noteboom, like we said a couple minutes ago, it's the consistency. But the flashes, they have been there. I mean, look at last week. I looked at week 17 against the New York Giants. So he came in the Colts game, and after AJ went out, but you look at week 17, he started in that game. He allowed 0 pressures, had a pass blocking grade of 90.6, according to PFF. So that's not nothing. And is he a great left tackle? Is he the franchise left tackle that they had hoped he would be and that Whitworth was passing the torch to him? No, he's not going to be that guy. But I certainly think that if you look at what this team needs, they need a guy that can keep Matthew Stafford upright and they can get the run blocking at the other offensive line position. So if he does that one thing well, I definitely think he strengthens his case to see more snaps this season.
Yeah, I do too. I think there's a real opportunity there for him when you're a player like Jackson, AJ Jackson, that is, and you're a starter, but you're not Kevin Dotson. You're not Avila. You're not Havenstein. You're not a guy that's just anchored in place after years and years of high quality play. You might not want to crack that door open for a guy that they had plans on as the starter to begin with, and that's exactly what he did.
And I think best case scenario for the Rams is that Joe Noteboom has the best year of his career. He stays healthy. He contributes. This Rams offensive line is mentioned among the best offensive lines in football. And when that's the case, usually you look at your left tackle. I think for this case, the strength will be the guards in the center spot, but still he'll be included in that mix. And you just give Matthew Stafford a clean pocket. You keep him vertical. You allowed him to do what he does. And then next season, he can get a paycheck with another team. But the truth is, I mean, AJ Jackson probably gets back to that starter's job. And the truth is, too, both of them are average-ish tackles at best. So I think the best case scenario is for both of them to perform well this year. And then you look for your franchise left tackle in the offseason or possibly in the draft. By the way, speaking of college football, how about the LSU's Will Campbell against USC? I mean, that is a stud left tackle I wouldn't mind to see in the Horns. By the way, USC, they are so back. USC is so back, going undefeated. That is the peak Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Pete Carroll era. I mean, a fight on. Oh, they're so back, Travis.
Yeah, that is the most sincere thing I've ever heard in my entire life. There's no ulterior motives. That's not meant as a reverse jinx. That is just straight up you loving SC. I totally get it.
Undefeated. Hey, we won Georgia.
Right.
I mean, let's do it. But coming up next, we're going to talk about an addition to the coaching staff. Also, the Rams name a captain. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, let's start with game time right here, right? Think about what's coming up here in LA. What do we got going this week? We got the Dodgers and the Angels going at a little freeway series. Teams in different spots. Obviously, the Dodgers being the Dodgers and the Angels, well, we don't need to really talk about that. But you need tickets if you're going to go to the game, right? So why not go to Game Time? Get that Game Time app on your phone, and you can go through all of this. And especially, this is what I love about baseball tickets. Sometimes it comes together at the last minute, right? You find a buddy that wants to go, but you don't have tickets. Game Time app tickets actually get cheaper the closer you get to the start of the game. So what are you waiting for? Curated deals make it easy to find the best price on seats. And when you toggle the all-in pricing feature, no surprises. You get to the end, and that's exactly what you agreed to. None of that, wait, where did that fee come from? Just turn it on, and you get all in all the time. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Also, this pod is brought to you by BetterHelp, right? What's something that you would like to learn, right? What's something that as an adult that you've made time to figure out a new thing that you'd like? Or what was that thing that when you were a kid that you really liked to think about or really like to learn about, right? Kids always growing, always curious. And as you get a little older, sometimes that curiosity kind of goes out the window. Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at absolutely any age. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, why not give BetterHelp a try? It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient. It's designed to be flexible, and it's designed to be suited to your schedule. So just fill out a brief questionnaire. You will get matched with a licensed therapist. And here's the best news at all. If for whatever reason you don't connect with that therapist, you can switch to a different one at any time for no additional charge. So rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Travis, so some news to get into here in our third segment. Came out over the weekend. The Rams are hiring former Nebraska head coach Scott Frost as a senior football analyst. He's going to have a multifaceted role. Of course, he did not have the success that the Huskers hoped that he was going to have. He was supposed to bring that program back. He went 16-31. They never went to a bowl game. They only cracked the AP top 25 once when they were 24. Big time college football vibes in this episode, by the way. But yeah, I mean, Scott Frost is another offensive mind, someone in the building, can help on defense as well. But that's what this team does. They look for opportunities to bring different minds, different ways to try to enhance their team any way they can. Here's another example.
I think this is a great example of one where you can fully trust Sean McVay. Sean McVay's done a remarkable job of identifying coaching talent. We can talk about his play calling. We can talk about the way that he's organized his football team, the success that he's had as a head coach in the NFL coming into his 8th season right here. He's as good as anybody. I've said it before. I'll say it again. One of the things that I think he's best at is identifying coaching talent. I don't think it's a surprise that so many of his, branches on the McVay tree have had real success. Very few of them have kind of, thudded and not hit in any meaningful way. Brandon Staley being the one that kind of jumps to mind. If he likes Scott Frost, by all means, bring him in, turn him loose, get another set of eyeballs, another brain to look at what it is that you're doing offensively. The failure at Nebraska for him, I don't feel is Scott Frost's failure. That's a failure of that. Nobody has had success at Nebraska for going on 20 years. So I don't think that sticks to him. He did have success. I think it was at UCF before there. So he's had success other places. But when it comes to McVay saying, I want this guy on my staff, I'm going to completely trust him to identify the right guys. Welcome to Los Angeles, Scott Frost.
And we have seen him dip into the college ranks, and we've seen guys like Jed Fish, Jimmy Lake. I mean, he doesn't have to just get NFL guys. He can bring guys in from college. And you saw last week, the Rams, they let Chili Davis go. And Chili Davis, he was a assistant that definitely had a role in this team. And I think you look at what Scott Frost is going to do, McVay's indicated is primarily going to be on special teams. And the Rams, they had one of the worst special team units in the sport ever last season. Yep. So definitely Chase Blackburn could use some help from that standpoint. McVay said about Scott Frost, just to be able to get a quality caliber coach like him in the building. As you guys know, we've had a lot of turnover for the right reasons, and you can't have enough good quality people in-house really to get him in. That was something that he wanted to do. And like I said, the mutual connections, there's a lot of people that are excited about it. So this definitely, I think, helps Scott Frost in his career for what he wants to do after this, more than I think it helps Sean McVay and the Rams, just because of having him and the connection with Sean McVay on your resume, what that does for you as far as your viability as a coach. I used to say that if you sold Sean McVay a pair of shoes, that you could get a job as an NFL equipment manager a couple years ago. And I think that this is certainly another example of that, where it's going to boost him as well.
I like what he said at the beginning of that quote, that we've had a lot of turnover around here for the right reasons. This isn't where you're blowing out your staff constantly. This isn't where you're constantly replacing a guy because he's done a bad job. You have to replace Kevin O'Connell because he's a head coach. You got to replace Raheem Morris because he's a head coach. You got to replace Matt LaFleur because he's a head coach. You got to replace all of these different guys because they're moving up. They're moving to bigger and better things. And he's had to continually backfill his coaching staff. And I'll always go back to when he first got hired. I think it was the first indicator of just how confident he is in what he does is that he hired Wade Phillips to be his defensive coordinator. He was basically a 30-year-old guy, never been a head coach in the league. And he goes and takes a guy that's been a head coach 3 other places that could have easily been the guy that took his job had it gone south. South. And instead, he's like, you go do the defense, I'll do the offense. And it worked as well as it did. I think it just kind of speaks to his confidence, speaks to his ability to identify coaching talent. And I think that this could be another home run. Well, Scott Frost becomes an OC somewhere in a season or two, wouldn't even be a little surprised.
I totally agree. There's a lot of promise from that standpoint. As you point out, he led that UCF team program that hadn't had a ton of success to really unprecedented success. So it's not like he's been a dud as a coach throughout his career. It really, Sean McVay is going to turn into, he really kind of already has kind of the NFL version of Nick Saban in a way, where some guys, they kind of need to rebrand, kind of bolster their career. You go with the Rams for a year or two, and you're right back on the coaching market with a really solid gig. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.